Why, hello, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Random Randy, and thank you for tuning into the channel. Now, today we are going to take a look at subterranean pools on maps circa the 1600s. And I always find these maps incredibly interesting, just a wealth of information embedded within this beautiful art that are cartography or maps. So, what's interesting is most of us would probably wonder how could they possibly know what was underground back in the 1600s. And that's the question, right? And so looking through uh some threads, come across this one pertaining to subterranean pools in South America and Africa. Now, they call these hydrophylaciums. The web translations aren't incredibly helpful for that, but a man by the name of Kircher put out his Mundus Subterraneus, dealing with geophysics, earthquakes, and volcanoes. And this was one of the most popular and spectacular works, full of exotic engravings and strange theories. He was fascinated with underground rumblings. Kircher himself lowered into Vesuvius shortly after a nearby earthquake in 1638. Now, in it, he published an account from the journal of Pedro Paez, a contemporary Jesuit colleague who had visited Ethiopia in the early 1600s and described seeing the fountains of the Nile. Now, James Bruce, the English Nile explorer, translated Kircher's version in his own work, Travels to Discover the Source of the Nile, in 1790. And here's what it said: On the 21st of April, in the year 1618, being here together with the king and his army, I ascended the place and observed everything with great attention. I discovered first two round fountains, each about 4 palms in diameter, and saw with the greatest delight what neither Cyrus, king of the Persians, nor Cambyses, nor Alexander the Great, nor the famous Julius Caesar could ever discover. Two openings of these fountains have no issue in the plain on the top of the mountain, but flow from the root of it. The second fountain lies about a stone cast west from the first. The inhabitants say that this whole mountain is full of water, and add that the whole plain about the fountain is floating and unsteady, a certain mark that there is water concealed under it, for which reason the water does not overflow at the fountain, but forces itself with great violence out at the foot of the mountain. So another Portuguese Jesuit, Geronimo Lobo, claimed to have passed through the area in 1629. He offered a different and supposedly fairly accurate description. In this territory of Tonquá is the known head and source of the river Nile, by the natives called Abani, the father of waters. The head rises in the most pleasant recess of the territory, having two springs called eyes. And we see something interesting with the notion that these springs are eyes of a previous entity, or I've heard water dragon. In the uh, we'll call it the like Sumerian epics, right? We have talk of Tiamat and the world being crafted from this chaos water dragon. But anyway, each about the bigness of a coach wheel, distant 20 paces. These two springs rise in a little field covered with a green and thick wood. This plain is on the top of a high mountain overlooking many spacious valleys, and from this height insensibly descends. At little more than 3 days' journey from the head, the river is large, deep enough for vessels to sail in. So Kircher's map, at which we're looking at right here, visualizes Paya's description of the source of the Nile, showing the river flowing out from under the mountains of the moon, and that's what they call this. It's interesting. We have ties in again with the moon and water, so that's interesting too. And that tale of Tiamat is something else, guys. We'll have to probably dig into that at some point. So through Ethiopian lakes that are also linked subterraneously. They say that this is an imaginative exercise, for none of the geography is accurate. So this map then leads the creator of this thread onto one in South America, showing a very similar hydrophalacium here. And so it's a very unusual map of South America from one of the first compilations of semi scientific knowledge about the physical features of the world. The map is totally devoid of political detail with only a few regional names. Instead, the map features the principal rivers, lakes, mountains, and volcanoes. Now, the mythical Lake Parim is here, mistakenly linked to Lake Titicaca. Paraguay is oddly depicted south of the Rio de la Plata, and a huge crater lake, more closely located to Lake Titicaca, is situated just above the Tropic of Capricorn. Now, the Andes are shown as a chain of live volcanoes in this map. And it's wild stuff. So there's a lot of geologic change that is kind of strange. It's wild. How did this stuff happen like so abruptly based on these maps and things? That's really the question. Now, the map is embellished with a large title cartouche at the bottom and published in a Dutch edition of Kircher's famous Subterranean World. So let's take a look at the sources for these maps. Here's one of the sources, and you can see how the Andes or the mountains are kind of just shown here. Okay, and then this is the source for uh, the other map there. So it's just incredible stuff. And you might be asking, well, what does it look like today? Randy, what is today's rendition of subterranean aquifers look like? Now, this is one. This is if all of the Earth's modern groundwater was pulled above ground, how deep it would be. So this shows you how much groundwater is available throughout the world, and it's a significant quantity. I mean, most of the world has between 1 and 50 meters depth. So that's if it was like pulled above ground. So like we really are living in a water world. We're just sitting right on top of it, which really brings to mind the question of geography, of seismology, and so on. Now we have a rendition from NASA showing trends in groundwater shortage. So this is going to be what if you're looking in the mainstream, you're going to find stuff like this telling us how little groundwater we have. um the different depths here, the different names of the aquifers, and so on. But at the same time, we go over here and we see this, and it really makes me wonder what's going on underneath our feet. Much like all of the old world topic, really makes me wonder what's going on beneath us. And did these folks that were creating these visualizations know something that we just aren't allowed to know anymore? So that's the thought. I just wanted to share this with you guys. I love checking out these old maps and seeing what is to be said about them. And it's just wild stuff. And the interesting thing is it's hard to, when you look at these older like Latin or different descriptions and you go to Google Translate and try to translate them, you get some really, really weird stuff. And it's wild. So one of the translations of the words is under the Andes, water of the races of magnitude, loving, merciful, peaceful ruler. So like that's one of the breakdowns. The breakdown is here. Sub Andebes, under the Andes, hydrophalacium, hydro meaning water, phalae meaning tribes or races, Siam meaning magnitude, Amer meaning to love, Rika meaning peaceful ruler. Now, see, this is you know, a here you go. This is an interesting take on what America means. We hear talk of dragons, we hear talk of rulers, we hear Americo Vespucci, but I've never heard this before, guys, that America may very well mean to love a peaceful ruler. So very interesting. Now, could this be referring to giants when we talk about the magnitude of tribes or races? And there are some giant legends in the Andes. And if you look at the word phylon with the plural phyla, meaning a group that has genetic relationship or common origin as a race. So there's a lot of wordplay in this old Latin meanings and things like this. Um, and we're told that Patagons were giants. The Patagons or Patagonian giants were a race of giant humans rumored to be living in Patagonia and described in early European accounts as indigenous myths. They were said to have exceeded at least double normal human height, with some accounts giving heights of 12 to 15 feet or more. Tales of these people would maintain a hold on European conceptions of the region for some 250 years. So interesting stuff, once again. And I'm kind of glad I stumbled across this. I love being able to go through these threads and kind of break this stuff down and put it in a nice, easily digestible format for you all. And I hope that this just encourages you to look into these things on your own and find out just how drastic the change has been in this world over the last few hundred years. And this is a series of changes that is still taking place. We see this today with storms and floods and everything. So we are watching the geographic change happen like currently in real time. So is it really a stretch to think that major geologic changes have happened in our recent history that we only find out about or only know about by breaking into the verbiage used in these maps, or finding out about previous civilizations that may have helped to create these visualizations, maybe being Patagonian giants being one of them? I'm just absolutely fascinated with the link between giants and the past of this realm. And I really, really feel that there's something to this. And it seems to be super hidden from us. It really does. And we're given, of course, several maps, and most of them are tied into the Jesuit order, which is interesting in itself. Does that mean the Jesuits are inherently evil? I'm kind of on the fence about that. I think most people are. There's going to be some bad apples in any control structure, but I don't think that it makes the entire structure inherently evil. But that's just a thought. Anyway, so this kind of ties into the Lake Parim video a little bit, geologic change and so on. But I just want to take a moment briefly to thank you all for tuning in once again. And I hope this information finds you well. And we will see you in the next video.